This is Hands-on Equation Lesson 3. So let's do a quick review. So far in Hands-on Equation, Lesson 1, we learned the pictorial method of solving equations. So for example, these triangles represent x, and we show them by drawing pictures of them, and we represent them with our blue pawns. And one side of an equation is always equal to the other side. In this case, we have 3 pawn is equal to pawn plus 10 plus 2. And in an equation, we know that our balance scale, which looks like this in our drawing, one side is always equal to the other side. Lesson number 2, we then took our pawns and wrote the number representative of them. So in this case, 3x is equal to x plus 12. And we learned to solve for these using a strategy called guess and check. In today's lesson, we will learn a new strategy. All right, so I've taken out my mat representing our balance scale. And in this lesson, let me give you an example of a problem we're going to work on. So go ahead and set up yours if you'd like. The problem is 4x plus 2 is equal to 3x plus 9. And that's what it will look like. Maybe on your assignment, you may get this problem. So 4x represents our 4 pawns plus 2 is equal to 3x, there's my 3 pawns, plus 9. All right, I think you'll like this. This is legal move number 1. So let me start with, just remember this balance scale means that one side of numbers weigh the same as the other side of numbers. So if they weigh the same amount, doesn't it make sense that you can remove pawns off of both sides of it to still keep the same balance and get rid of some pawns so you can solve the problems easier? So far, I've removed 1 pawn on both sides. My scale is still balanced. I can remove another pawn, and it's still balanced. And I have 1 pawn on this side, so I can still remove a pawn from both sides. And now I'm working with smaller numbers. And I've isolated the 9. So I have 9, remember, is equal to 9. So I need to ask myself 2 plus what is equal to 9? I know it's 7. 7 plus 2 is 9. So x equals 7. Let me go ahead and write that down. And now let's put up our original equation. And because I've just put them right down here on my mat, I can easily put them right back up. I can check my original equation, and I see that it's right. So I'm going to plug in for x. I see x equals 7. 7 times 4 is 28, plus 2 is 30. Let's check the other side. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 9 is 30. So it checks out. So there's my check. 30 is equal to 30. And remember, when I put a check mark over my equal sign, that's the promise that I checked it. All right, so here is another problem let's practice with, and I've gone ahead and written it down, and I have my setup 5x plus 2 equals 2x plus 14, and I'm using the new strategy we've learned, and that strategy is to remove pawns from both sides of our balance scale. So I see on this side, I have 2 pawns I can bring down. So that means on this side, I can pull down the same amount. And now I have 10 plus 4 is 14 equals 2 plus something equals 14, I know that 2 plus 12 equals 14. So this amount represents 12. And there are 3 pawns. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So I'm using some division strategies too. Or at this point, if you're not really comfortable with your division strategies, you can guess and check. Because you are working with smaller numbers, it should be easier. But I see that x equals 4, so I'm going to go ahead and write that down so I don't forget. X equals 4. And then I'm going to plug in my original equation again. And I've double checked it to my original. And I'm going to plug in 4. So 4 times 5 is 20, plus 2 is 22. And 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 14 is 22. So there's my check. 22 equals 22. There's my promise that I've checked it. All right, so now your job is to take out your assignment for hands-on equation lesson 3. I want you to use your mat and your manipulatives and practice this legal move that you learned by reducing the same number of pawns on both sides of your equation. It should be easier for you to solve problems. Go ahead and practice that. Remember to pause the video wherever you need to help yourself in your understanding.